Welcome to Systems Philosophy. In the previous episode, we explored how cultural groups could be framed as an information field that links the individuals within the group, much like the information field within a body links the individual cells. This is not the only way, the only truth. We went and examined that the perspective of the individual within the group is just as relevant, just like the perspective of the individual cell within the body is just as relative, just as relevant. So I could see my body as a clonal colony of identical cells, acting as a vast community, or I could see my body as a coordinated system, structured and coordinating as a single entity. And for us, that's the most natural way to view ourselves. It takes some mental gymnastics to think that we're a microbial colony that somehow is mobile. If we view ourselves as composed of little nanomachines that have constructed a body, as some science fiction has proposed, that might be an easier way to perceive what we are through the abstraction of technology and information technology, information systems. That's why I use biology a lot and lean on cybernetics, because for me and my personal philosophy, which I'm sharing in these episodes, there is a huge amount of similarity and overlap. Okay, so if we accept that the group is an entity and the group usually has its boundary within the us and them, that is how we psychologically select. Now, today, we can talk about us and them at multiple scales. I can talk about us English speakers, us of European ancestry, us as Australians, us as Tasmanians, us as the residents of St Helens. The boundaries around the cultural collective can be drawn at many levels. If we look at the cells of the body, we could easily talk about us as this one being, myself, us as the brain, us as the eyes, us as the stomach, us as the legs. The same sort of abstraction of function and grouping, modularity, is echoed within cultural dynamics. I think it's useful to view the us as a cohesive, self-sustaining group. In the Stone Age, that would have been the tribe, the group of people that largely live together, interact every day, and work together under the binding unity of culture. New members of the tribe are taught their songs, taught the language, and taught all about the local environment. The Dunbar's number limits our remembered friends. The tribe travels together. It may split where the men hunt and the women forage, and then come back together at night for a meal. They collect together for safety. So the tribe, at least in a simplistic, idealized perspective of what the cultural body looks like, is what I imagine it to be. Cultural bodies, like multi-cellular colonies, multicellular organisms, have ecological niches. We can get tribes specialized for a mountain habitat, steep country, cold climate, whatever game inhabits. We have tribes that are specialized for oceans and foreshores, fishing cultures, seashore harvesting cultures, foods that reflect that lifestyle. We get nomadic herdsmen specializing in cattle, camels, horses. The people of the steppes, the Genghis Khan relatives. From one perspective, and I'm using metaphors, and these metaphors are never perfect, but from one perspective we could view the individual tribe as the individual organism, and the group of collected tribes, the nation, if you like. The tribal lands, the people that share the same language and culture, could be considered the gene pool, the group of related species that interact, reinforce, and behave differently. That's not to say that tribes won't compete, like wolf packs compete for territory. But like-speaking peoples have similar culture, similar language, and similar adaptation. So the idea of it being a pool of individuals within a species, where culture and language provides the binding glue, is at least a useful visualization, a useful metaphoric guide. Just like ecologies specialize form and function of the body to fit the niche, ecologies also interact with other members. Humanity, through cultural diversity, from one perspective, can be considered to be diversifying, just like species do in an ecology. Groups that share a common language can be separated by distance and geography, and the language drifts into dialects, and ultimately those dialects become less and less compatible and understandable. That is dynamically related to the way that species separate and become new species. Just like in ecology, we can get different niches even within the one geography. We can get tribes that hunt other tribes, just like predators hunt other animals. Human predators that specialize not on gathering resources from the environment, but getting those resources from others. One dynamic I could see is that fixed settlements can build infrastructure that allow craftsmen and technologies not easily accessible to herdsmen. So even though the herdsmen don't want for food or clothing or shelter, because all that is already embedded in the tribe. Let me use again Genghis Khan and the steppes people of Middle Asia, the cold plateaus where grazing herds of horses were tamed, ridden, used for milk, used for hair, just because the people associate with horses doesn't mean that horses need to be exclusive. We have horsemen used to control other animals like cattle, but that is, I think, a sidetrack. For this perspective of looking at how human cultures could speciate into predator and prey, we can have settled cultures that build walls to protect themselves and keep themselves safe, with fields and hunting grounds outside of those walls and stores of food within the walls. Houses and factories that allow artisans and craftsmen to flourish. Building material wealth that a nomadic plainsman might covet but will find very difficult to construct. The easy solution is just to take what you need. Horses are fast. You can ride in with a band, find a relatively small unprotected village and take what you need. Perhaps it can start with taking food in times of need. It can take to taking precious things, gold and jewellery, things that a nomadic herdsman can carry, can perhaps even use. We haven't really gotten into money and economies yet in this series. But once economies have evolved, the concept of money as a technology to enable greater coordination exists, then raiding gold and jewellery creates materials that you can later peacefully trade. So the tribe need not be purely predator. It can be chameleon, preying occasionally on the weak and then engaging in commerce. The concept here, and it's a loose one, but I think there's a good parallel, is that human cultures evolve and speciate. We speciate through language. We can inhabit different ecosystems. And the most sensible thing is, because language and belief systems bind, that the greater tribal nation will be a specialist. We might be forest people, we might be plains people, we might be hills people, we might be mountains people, we might be herdsmen, nomadic horsemen, desert camel traders. There is an ecology constructed between interacting cultural bodies. It isn't exactly the same as the ecology of the traditional biological ecosystem, yet the framing of viewing the culture as a being, a group of cultures with a related belief system or language as a species, and then the process of different cultures with different interactions as an ecology. For me personally, that provides useful insight into human history and the human condition. Taking that one step further, I can at least speculate how a raiding relationship between two peoples, say the peoples of the Indus Valley and the people of the Mongolian steppes, where the horsemen would come down to the plains people and conduct raids on a regular basis, might one day have led to one of those nomadic horse tribes deciding life is pretty good down here with houses and all the spoils of settlement and the technology that settlement enables. So the raiders become rulers and settle, creating a hybrid, much like eukaryotes incorporated photosynthesizers and metabolizers in the chloroplasts and the mitochondria. I can see two different cultures combining, and the combination providing something new, something novel, like a cell that can photosynthesize and utilize oxygen, that then can grow into not just tribes but empires, combining raiders with agricultural artisan farmers, is similar in concept to when nomadic hunters decided it was better off protecting the herd and harvesting as needed, keeping other predators away. So nomadic warrior people might find it easier to subjugate agriculturalists and artisans and keep them safe, integrating within the society, becoming the ruling class, becoming the martial class. I think there is historical evidence and precedent. The Brahmin class and the strict cultural separation in terms of classes in traditional Indian society hints at that sort of history, where the raiders combined with the settled peoples to create a new form of cultural entity. The republic, the empire, the kingdom. We get the extractor class that consider themselves privileged through power, the elite, the oligarchy, the rentiers, and we get the producer class, the remnants of the collaborative agricultural group, the oppression and rulership almost certainly began with raw power, like a dictatorship. Do what we say or else. That would have been the initial anchor, just like a herdsman can use force to create compliance. Over time, the reflexive relationship would lead to training, to maintaining the exploitation, but that exploitation becoming mutually beneficial. The agricultural peoples now have fierce warriors protecting them, and instead of having to suffer the trauma and injury of raids, they suffer the more predictable and acceptable loss through taxation. The state demands tribute, a certain percentage of your productive capacity, and in return, the rentiers provide protection, provide order, provide rule. I think the point has been made. It is a transition through agriculture into empire that has brought our humanity to the point we are today. Looking through this thought experiment back at the fundamental beginnings, the raider combining with the raided, the hunter combining with the hunted herd to become herdsman, the lion lying down with the lamb, the metaphor of the predator and the prey living in unity, in cultural symbiosis, is what today's episode has been trying to clearly describe. This has been Systems Philosophy.